What's up guys, Chief here with another video where we learn how to play Starcraft 2. Today we're going to talk about upgrades, more specifically upgrades from the Zerg perspective, and how these upgrades can really influence your advantage or disadvantage in the early game of Zerg play. So we're talking generally about a situation where you're trying to choose between getting +1 armor or +1 weapons for some of your units. And that's going to be the interaction we're going to be talking about. Most of the time, if you're playing Zerg, you'll probably end up getting both upgrades anyway, so this might be kind of a moot point, but we'll talk about it just in case you do end up in that situation. So here we go. I've made a little bit of a graphic for you guys to be able to help explain this a little better. So we see here we have the three Zerg matchups: Zerg vs Zerg, Zerg vs Terran, and Zerg vs Protoss. So if we look and talk about the Zerg vs Zerg perspective, one of the most important things about getting +1 Carapace is that your Zerglings will actually survive Baneling blasts. If you know a lot about Zerg vs Zerg, you know that the early stages of the mid game come down to Zerglings and Banelings. A lot of the time it's Ling Bane gameplay. So if you end up getting a +1 Carapace upgrade, you can really help swing the tide of battle, because we all have had that one Baneling shot that kills like 15 of our Zerglings. It's just, the game's over, right? The game's just over. You've lost. So if you get that Carapace, there's a very narrow window of time where you're going to be really effective against the other Zerg until he gets his +1 weapons. Once the +1 weapons comes into play, this no longer happens. They're still going to one-shot you. If a Baneling has +1 weapons, it's going to one-shot you. So just remember that that's a very narrow window of time if he's also getting upgrades. So if we move over to Zerg vs Terran, we're going to notice some interesting interactions with siege tanks. And those two are that roaches normally die in 3 shots from a siege tank. If you have the +1 Carapace, they'll live through 4 blasts. That can be helpful. More importantly, Zerglings actually won't get 1 shot by siege tanks. If you have the +1 Carapace, they will live through 2 shots. And that's very important, because if you have a situation where your enemy has just some siege tanks somewhere on the map, your Zerglings can actually kill siege tanks by themselves. So one Zergling can kill 1 siege tank all by itself. And that's because it can close the gap. By the time the siege tank reloads and tries to shoot again, even off creep, that speedling will be able to get to the siege tank and be able to kill it because it's in melee range. So that's kind of an interesting little thing to note. Now, if we're talking about Zerg vs Protoss, Carapace is really, really important for a couple reasons. 2 that are kind of important are roaches will take 4 shots from immortals instead of dying in 3 shots like they normally will. Zerglings will also take 2 shots from +0 weapon archons, which you don't really see that often because they're more of a late game unit. But they won't get 1 shot by +0 archons. They'll live through 2 hits. That can be a little bit interesting. The most important thing to notice is the interaction between Zealots and Zerglings. In Zerg vs Protoss, that's a very important thing to understand, is that a Zealot versus a Zergling, no upgrades, it'll take the Zealot 3 attacks to kill that Zergling. But once that Zealot gets +1 weapons, it only takes 2 attacks. And that makes Zealots extremely cost effective against Zerglings. And we do not want to engage +1 Zealots as a Zerg player if we don't have our Carapace upgrade. What happens when you get the Carapace upgrade on your Zerglings is that it no longer takes 2 shots and you're back to the normal 3 hits to kill your Zerglings again. So you want to make sure that if you are about to do an engagement and it's around the point in the game where they could have a quick upgrade, you just want to click on that Zealot and make sure they're not using +1 weapons yet. And if they are, you're probably going to want to back off until you can get your Carapace upgrade. So that's important to know. And the general thing I want you guys to take away from this video again is just whether or not, if you have to choose between one upgrade or the other, which one you're going to choose. So let's think about it that way. Now, if we go back to Zerg vs Zerg and start talking about weapons, there's an interesting couple things that are going to happen. If we go through them real quick, we'll notice that Zerglings will die in 2 attacks from a roach instead of 3. That's really helpful. You get a 1 less attack from your roaches to kill Zerglings. Now, if you're doing a Mutalisk game, a Mutalisk harass, and you've got 5 Mutalisks without any upgrades, 1 volley from that group of 5 Mutalisks will kill a drone. But if you have +1 weapons on those Mutalisks, it'll only take 4 to one-shot that drone. So that's kind of not really going to come into play that often, but could be useful to know. Just kind of a neat little fact. Now, These are two interactions between the Zerg units that are interesting to note. And one of them is that the roaches, if you're fighting two groups of roaches from each player with nothing else around, the missile upgraded roaches are way better than the armor upgraded roaches. They're just going to win. That's all you need to know. But alternatively, if you have a muta on muta fight, so you have mutalisks fighting mutalisks alone, the armor upgraded mutalisks are way better than the missile upgraded mutalisks. So these are generally the upgrades. If you've seen a mirror build kind of style, you're going to want to consider getting these upgrades for these units. Alternatively, if we talk about hydralisks, the missile is generally going to be the best thing to get for your hydralisks, because it's going to take them one less shot to kill both hydralisks, enemy hydralisks, and mutas. So they benefit a lot from getting your +1 weapons. And that's really all I wanted to talk about for these Zerg upgrades, guys. There's some other interactions within these matchups, but they're not nearly as fun. We're talking about things like taking, 11 attacks instead of 12 to kill something. So really, at that point in the game, we're talking about a mixed army anyway, where you're going to have lings, you're going to have roaches, you're going to have hydras, you're going to have banelings. There's all kinds of shit going on, right? We don't really need to worry about those interactions as much. So I would like you guys just maybe to take a look at this chart and consider maybe which upgrade, if you have to choose one or the other, which upgrade that you want to get first. And again, a lot of situations, guys, we're going to choose to upgrade with 2 evolution chambers, and we're going to do both upgrades at the same time anyway. But this is just a nice little chart to kind of give you an idea of what interactions can be happening. So if you guys want, I'll provide a link to download this chart in the description of this video. You can go ahead and do that. Otherwise, guys, we're going to talk about more upgrades again from the other 2 races perspectives. If you guys want to check those out, take a look at my Learn StarCraft 2 playlist. I make 1 video a day. Been going pretty steady with that. So I hope to maybe see you guys again in one of my other videos. Otherwise, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Check me out live on twitch.tv/ChiefLiveGaming. We do a lot of ladder matches, a lot of fun stuff there. So check me out if that interests you. Otherwise, have a great day, guys. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.